can stand up on the stage if you want, because that microphone is also working.
Maybe he's out because of here. And I can see you all. Hi, my name is Michael. I'm a grateful believer in Jesus Christ. I celebrate recovery with victory over drugs, alcohol, violence, prison, and a criminal lifestyle. I'm from Alaska. I moved down here a year ago. I grew up in a place called Spinard. It's in Anchorage, Alaska. It's a little neighborhood there. And I grew up 2 doors down from the Hells Angels clubhouse. The neighborhood I grew up in, it was kind of a poor neighborhood, lots of bars. Like within a block of my house, there's probably 5 or 6 bars. And there were 5 of us kids, and we stayed with my grandma, which lived 2 houses down from my mom's house. And there were 5 of us kids. My mom was an alcoholic, and my dad, he wasn't around. So we stayed with my grandma. The first time I ever smoked weed, I was in 3rd grade. And yeah, I know that's hard to believe, but I smoked. My grandma died when I was 9, and we moved in with my mom. Like I said, she was two doors down, but we pretty much raised ourselves because she was usually at the bar. And if we wanted to see her, we would just go down to the bar. We'd go into all these little bars and see if she was there. I was smoking and drinking by the time I was in 6th grade. When Terry was doing the study a couple weeks ago, and she said she used to go around as a kid and would like steal the drinks. I remember doing that at my mom's house on holidays. Everybody would be drinking or beers would be laying around, and I would do that, and it brought back the memory of that. I didn't have that in my testimony, but when you said that, Terry, I'm like, But so I was smoking and drinking heavily by 6th grade. By 7th grade, I was a full-blown alcoholic. On the weekends, my friends, we'd go get a bottle of Southern Comfort and a Pepsi, a couple of us, and that's what we do. We would just drink. And Alaska's like that. It's kind of a dark place. And I don't mean just in the winter, the sun don't come up. It's just, you'd be amazed the drugs and alcohol up there. In 7th grade, I remember doing cocaine in the junior high school off the sink in the bathroom. And I have a 12-year-old son right now, or he's 13 now. When I wrote this, he was 12, but I can't imagine my kid doing cocaine at that age. You know, it just blows my mind. That's why I moved down here to get custody of my son, and I got him now. But anyway, I started selling weed and getting in trouble all the time, and I ended up in juvenile hall. And that's where I first met Jesus. I was in juvenile hall, and I got in a fight, and they sent me to the hole, and the only thing you could have was a Bible. They gave me a Bible, and I read it, I believed it. No one in my family was believers. I just, like, God came to me in that little tiny cell, and I just read the Bible, believed it, accepted Jesus. There was some people that came in, church people, so I came in and I got saved, you know, and but I got out, I don't know, months later, and I just went right back to using drugs, you know. I didn't really have a good foundation. So growing up, some things happened to me, and I hadn't really told a lot of people about this, but I was molested as a kid. And that's kind of a hard thing for men to admit. You know, it's just kind of embarrassing, and there's a lot of shame and guilt that goes along with it. And so throughout my childhood, there was this guy that had given his kids drugs. He was giving little kids drugs and molesting them. And I was one of them. But anyway, I kept getting in trouble growing up, you know, going through my teenage years. And when I was 14 years old on Christmas, I got really, really drunk and dragged the Christmas tree out of my house and got in a fight with my stepdad, who came into the picture a few years earlier. And I mean, he's a grown man, I'm a kid trying to fight him. It didn't work out so good. But I ended up back in juvenile hall, and so I think I was 15 or so there. But when I told this story too at my youth group, I was one of the youth group leaders, and I said this on my testimony at Word of Victory, but I was telling all these kids, don't try to fight a grown man. You know, it's not going to work out so good for you. But I tried, but I got my butt kicked. And anyway, cops were called, back in juvenile hall. There I was, I began reading my Bible again. And I want to tell you something about my mom too. She loved us. She just had her own issues. She was an alcoholic, and man, she always would try to get me out of jail, get me out of trouble, always would tell the PO she'll, take care of it, she'll do this, do that, and I never held anything against my mom, just because being an adult alcoholic addict, I get it, you know what I mean? You don't mean to do this stuff to your kids and your family, but it just happens. And so anyway, where am I at here? When I was about to get out of McLaughlin Youth Center is what it was called, my mom came, and in Alaska you get dividend checks. I was turning 16, she got me my driver's license, she gave me my first dividend check. It was the first year it came out, it was $1,000, it's oil money, and every Alaskan gets it. So she tells me that, she says this, we're moving to New York, and I go, we are? And she goes, not we, son, you're not coming. And my stepdad, so my little brother and sister were going, I had an older brother and an older sister, but they were already out on their own, But, so here I am, a 16-year-old kid with $1,000 and my driver's license, and they're gone. They left soon after that.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm thinking I'm gonna turn into this big cocaine dealer. I bought an ounce of cocaine, and I'm gonna be a dealer. My older brother, he was 4 years older than me. He had his dividends, so we bought a couple ounces of cocaine. We're gonna be dealers. But being an addict, even at that age, it didn't work out so good. We just ended up being, actually it was called freebasing cocaine, and now they call it crack or whatever, but it was freebasing back then, and it surely wasn't free. Anyway, so at some point during this, I'm 16 years old, getting high, trying to be a drug dealer. I ended up at this church. It was called the Anchorage Christian Center, and it was a Holy Spirit-filled church. I ended up going there. I got baptized in water. I got baptized in the Holy Ghost, and I was actually out doing some street preaching with the youth group. Man, I seen miracles, people getting healed. I mean, straight up sick, healed, just God was all over this place, and me, and but somehow I ended up just back on drugs, on the street again, and I don't know how that works, because I was a believer, and it's like a lot of people will think that like a believer can't be possessed or whatever. I don't argue theology and all this stuff. I'm just not that guy. But I'll tell you, I believed in Jesus. I loved Jesus, but I still fought and struggled with addiction my whole life. I mean, so I don't know. Anyway, let me go here. Throughout all of this, I'm back on drugs, I'm selling drugs, growing weed. I started growing weed, and there was times in my life I was drinking. I was just kind of going through life as an addict. I mean, I even had some really good jobs. I worked construction, I was a commercial fisherman. This is going through like 17, 18, 19, 20 years old, and I had a few relationships, some girlfriends, but I just never could get them right, it just never worked out for me. All my life, I was on some kind of drug. It wasn't like, it's just like a drug skipping or something. I'd be drinking, I'd be smoking weed, I'd be doing cocaine for a while, get off that, onto something else. But fast forward to like 1998, I'd been growing weed for years. I kind of was just being an alcoholic. I wasn't so much of a drug addict. Once in a while cocaine, but mostly just drinking and smoking weed, growing weed. But I got busted with a bunch of weed, like 43 quarter-pounds of weed. I had 11 guns and a quarter-ounce cocaine. But at that time, I was making pretty good money. I ended up getting a good lawyer, and I was able to bail out at that time. And my girlfriend at that time, her dad was one of the Hells Angels that I lived next to that clubhouse. And some of the guns I got busted with were his because we hunted together. So we had like had this hunting party, we're gonna clean all our guns and get ready to go hunting, and I got busted. In come the cops. But I ended up getting like a year for that and 5 years probation for all that stuff. So, like I said, I had a good lawyer. But when I was out on bail, I got my girlfriend pregnant. So I have a 21-year-old son now up in Alaska, 22 maybe. But when I got out, I really tried to get my life together. I wanted to straighten up, you know, quit selling weed. I didn't want to go back to jail, but I ended up getting in this bad snow machine wreck. I crashed my snow machine at like 120 miles an hour, broke my back and my neck, and I didn't even find out that I broke my back and neck till like 4 years ago. I went to the chiropractor, and he's like, oh yeah, you know, I didn't have insurance. I went to the hospital. They basically just kind of, oh yeah, no insurance, here's a bottle of pills. I stumbled out of there. I could barely walk for like 6 months, but I ended up, long story short, I ended up getting hooked on pain pills. I'm an addict, and it went from like Vicodins, Percodan, right on to the Oxycontins. Had a full-on script. I was on probation, but I had a prescription. It was legal. And my PO, she didn't care if I drank. You know, you're 21, you know, just don't drink and drive. You got a script. So here I am, legally doing drugs, faking my way through all this probation. My girlfriend, she ended up leaving me and the kid. I had my son till he was like 5 years old. And she ran off with one of the prospects from that club and was doing her own thing. I ended up getting joint custody of my kid. But I kind of was faking it through it. You know, I still was selling weed a little bit on the side. It wasn't really working. I had a snowplow business, so, you know, I could plow around and take my pain pills, and I just kind of faked my way through 5 years of probation. I never got in trouble, but as soon as I got off probation, I met this guy, and here's where the story gets it goes into some serious evil stuff. I got hooked on meth. I was dealing with this youngster. When I say young, he was like 18 years old. He was from Riverside, California, and he had a ton of methamphetamine. And I was growing weed again. He liked the weed, and I ended up liking the meth. And it got serious. It was big time. He was dropping off just a bunch. Just let me say that, you know. And I still had my kid there in all of this. And meth is anybody, I don't know, you know, this is kind of a different crowd than I'm used to. You kind of are not my people, I will say. Some of you are, but if you've ever messed with that stuff, you'll know it's a serious demonic drug. Right. And there's no denying it. It's demonic. That's all I can say. It's violence. It's sex. It's a bad deal. I'm kind of getting off track here, but it's greed. Man, greed is a big one. You get so greedy on that stuff. You don't really care about anybody. You know, like I said, I had my kid around all this stuff, and it's just crazy. But so this kid calls me one day out of the blue. He's like crying. And that's, like I said, he was 18 years old. He's crying and he tells me, I'm on my way to your house. I just killed this guy. And his name was Mario Page. You guys can Google this. And they killed this guy, and he's like, I'm on my way to your house. He's crying. I'm like, what are you talking about? You know, I just hung up, and here he shows up. He has all this money. He's freaking out. And me, I just left. I took my kid back to his mom, told her what was up. Hey, this happened. I'm not involved in this. I'm out of here. I'm leaving town. So I did. And these cops, when they found this guy they killed, they triangulated the cell phones. This was back in 90 or 2005, and this is not funny, but I always knew these cell phones. I was like a tweaker. Oh, they're listening. I would tell people, oh no, you're just a tweaker. No, they did. They triangulated that shit. Excuse my language, right to my house. So I get a call from this. His name was Officer Hahn, the homicide detective, and he's like, yeah, we need to talk to you about Mario, you know. And I'm like, I don't know Mario. I don't know what you're talking about. Got rid of the phone, and like I said, I just left town. And so Mario, they ended up catching him. There was 4 of them. You guys can read about it, but they caught him. 3 of them got life sentences, and Mario, the 18-year-old, he got like 60 years. So I think he's eligible he's 40. I think he's got probably another 15 years, something like that. But so on after that, I never talked to the cops. It all ended. 2007, I'm still hooked on this meth. I started making checks and IDs. This is 2007. I'm running drugs back and forth in Alaska. There's like one road goes to Kenai to Homer to Fairbanks. One goes to Valdez. It's not for a big place. It's kind of small. But I'm running drugs back there, still doing my thing. By then I lost my kid. His mom just kept him. So there was this year I put a restraining order on me. There's a 1-year restraining order. And so I'm running hard. And I got busted for making these IDs and checks. And I was in for 10 months. I bailed out to a treatment center, Salvation Army. And this was like, I'm back in jail, I'm reading my Bible again, back with Jesus, praying, God, get me out of here. And he did. He sends me right to this perfect place. Jesus is there. Salvation Army is an awesome place. I'm just telling you, that's a real Christian place. But I was there like 3 days, wasn't done. Jumped the fence, headed on out. Same thing. And this is, I wrote in here, when I was talking about demons and believers being possessed and all this stuff, but there's a scripture, there's quite a few scriptures where it says, I don't know if I wrote it down. It says in Luke 11:26, it says, then he goes and takes with him 7 other spirits more wicked than himself, and they enter and dwell there, and the last state of that man is worse than the first. That's true. This, I kind of got set free for 10 months, got out or ran. Here I am again, and I went even harder. I'm running way harder. Then I'm like, I'm on the run. What do I got to lose? Well, I ended up doing almost 10 years over all this. Who knows if I would have stayed in the treatment, because I wouldn't have gotten more charges, but I did. And like I wrote in here, I'm not going to argue theology. All I can tell you is I was a believer. I loved Jesus. He walked with me through all of it. All this stuff, or I wouldn't be here right now testifying. He never left me. Did I leave him? Yeah. But he never left me. And anyway, that was 2007, 2008, I'm on the run for almost a year. 2009, June 28th, I got busted again. I was wanted, I was Alaska's most wanted. That's my clean date. And man, I get in there and I just was done. It was such relief. I've been looking over my shoulders and man, I get in there, I'm in this place and we come out and I seen them. I seen the cops, and I was with this girl, and I'm like, man, that's the cops. I was wanted. Like I said, I was Alaska's most wanted. You guys can Google my name, just Michael Rogers, Alaska's most wanted. You can see all this stuff. And I got my testimony on YouTube as well. You guys can watch that. It's Michael Rogers, Alaskan. But I look out there, I see the cops over there, and this girl goes, "You're just tweaking." I'm like, really? Because I hadn't even got high that day. I went and made this big check, went and cashed it, and was gonna go get some dope. But I pull up, and sure enough, this cop, I see it, big yellow letters, U.S. Marshals. And I'm just, right then, boom, we're running down the highway. I'm like, oh yeah, am I a tweaker now? No, I wasn't tweaking, it was the cops. But high speed chase down Lake Otis, or you guys don't know what Lake Otis is, but it's a road. Anyway, run out of gas, I went in the wrong lane, they stopped chasing you. If you're ever getting chased by the cops, just go in the wrong lane. They will stop chasing you, I promise. But anyway, ran out of gas. So then we're running, we go to try to hide in this motorhome. Here they found us, dogs, all that, cops outside, come on, hands up, tear gas, all this, we're gonna blast you with tear gas. And so I was done. They caught me, and I knew I was doing a serious stint. And I actually did 4 years in the state. And when I was about to get out, they took me back to pretrial. I got 6 years for these charges. So you do 4 on 6 with good time. I was about to get out, here come the feds, all new charges. So here's what the feds do. They don't make deals. They have sentencing guidelines. So here's what they tell me. I'd already been in 4 years. They go, so here's the deal. If you don't take this deal, 4 to 7, that's the deal. You know, whatever the judge gives you, we're gonna ACC you, armed career criminal, 30 to life. And so, and you know, I got this paperwork, and I've said this on my other testimony. It says United States of America versus Michael Rogers. And you're kind of just going, wow, 30 to life. And I'm like, you know, I thought it was in my other testimony, like, what am I, Geronimo? The United States of America versus Michael Rogers, you know? But it was serious, and you can't fight him, so it's like, well, of course I'm going to take the deal. So they gave me right in the middle. They took into consideration that I had been in 4 years already, so 54 months, five and a half years, I think that is. And there's not really good time in the feds. You get 40 days a year, 38 days a year. So did most of that, did all of it actually, but my last year was in a halfway house, 6 months in a halfway house, 6 months on an ankle monitor. But anyway, I want to get back to, I don't want to go on too long. I went way long on my last one at Word of Victory Church. It was like 45 minutes. I don't want to keep you guys that long. But when I got to pretrial, I got on my knees, and I said, man, Jesus, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And I prayed, heal me of this addiction. Because I was just an addict, man. And I had been an addict my whole life. And so I've always, like, when I was in juvenile hall as a kid, I read the whole Bible in 2 weeks when I was in the hole. I've always been a reader. I've read this thing. You guys, I had 10 years to read this thing. I went to Bible college. You know, when I got in prison, I made up my mind that I was going to figure it out. What is wrong with me? What is going on in my life that I got to keep using these drugs? And I started doing things. I knew I wasn't going back. I made that decision. I'm not going back. I did everything I could in life in there. I took every class. I was 39 years old. I got my GED. I went to Bible college. It's called Global University. It's an Assemblies of God Bible college. And, you know, I like to say I'm a little Pentecostal, a little bit rock and roll. I believe some of the stuff they believe. I don't believe it all. You know, everybody has their theology, but I believe the foundation of it. I believe Jesus died for my sins and rose again, ascended into heaven, you know, and I believe in the gifts of the Spirit. I've seen so many healings, you guys wouldn't believe it. In prison, I've laid my hands on people, and God healed them of cancer tumors. Backs, I mean, you wouldn't believe it. I believe that. And if you guys want, if anybody needs prayer tonight, I'll pray for you. I'll lay my hands right on you and pray to God for healing, for whatever it is. But I got a bunch of scriptures I want to read, and I even got some stuff that is new to this testimony just the past couple days. Like I was digging through some of my old poems and songs, and I found some stuff from some Bible studies that we had in prison. But I want to go to John 5 because it changed my life. I mean, you guys know the story of the man at the well, right? Let me see if I can get that real quick. If I'm going too long, just tell me. Just be like, tell me, Pastor. So, I got lost on my page here too, so it's a good thing I can just roll on. So, I wrote in here, I opened my Bible once again when I was back in pretrial waiting to get sentenced, the first charges, and I come to John 5, and this changed my life. After this, there was a feast of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now there is at Jerusalem by the sheep market a pool, which is called in the Hebrew tongue Bethsaida, having 5 porches. In these lay a great multitude of impotent folk, of blind, halt, withered, waiting for the moving of the water. For an angel went down in a certain season into the pool and troubled the water, and whosoever then first after the troubling of the water stepped in was made whole of whatever disease he had. A certain man was there which had an infirmity 38 years. I was 38 years old when this happened. And I don't know if you caught that, it said he had a certain disease. When Jesus saw him, lie and knew that he had been now a long time in that case. Other translations say in that condition. He saith unto him, wilt thou be made whole? Other translations say, do you want to be healed? That blew my mind. I'm like, man, this guy's been crippled for 38 years. Why would Jesus ask him that? Do you want to be made whole? Do you want to be healed? And the important man answered him, Sir, I have no man when the water is troubled to put me into the pool. But while I am coming, another stepped down before me. Jesus told me, he goes, that man's you. He's making excuses. Right then, I got no one to put me in the water. And Jesus told me, that's you, man. You're sick, but you keep making excuses. And mine was stuff like this. Oh, my mom was an alcoholic. My dad was an alcoholic. I was molested. I'm an addict. Once an addict, always an addict. Jesus said that to me. Do you want to be made whole? Do you want to be healed? And I wrote this song. It has a line in it. It says, do you want to be free? Because it seems like to me, you like the pain. You get in these situations where you're so used to something and it just becomes the norm. It's like, it gets comfortable. Your pain and misery can become comfortable. And I was comfortable in it. It's what I was used to. It's like, I can always sell some drugs, make some money or whatever. I can live this way. I've always lived that way. And Jesus opened my eyes on it right there. I came to the conclusion that my disease will never be healed if I keep making excuses about it. And that's what I had done, all my life. And I decided right then I wasn't making any more excuses. Like I said, man, I took every class. You would never, in almost 10 years, 8 years steady in prison, you never see me sitting around watching TV. I just, I would watch The Voice or something once in a while, but I didn't sit around watching sports, or I was always in a book, in my Bible. Man, I got a job in the federal prison in the chapel, and to work in there, you had to study every religion. You just did it as part of the deal because you had to cater to every religion. I mean, you name it, Buddhists, Jehovah's Witnesses, you name it, Jews, the Indians had their stuff. Even like white boys, the Odinist stuff, everyone, they've studied it all. But the library in there is like a Bible college. They got every Christian book, you name it. It's crazy. The church fathers, it's like a Bible college, just trust me. And I read so many preacher books. I mean, if you name a preacher, I probably read his book. Tozer, I don't care, Swingle, you name it, Joyce Meyer, I don't care, I read them all. The old ones, the new ones, I just kept reading and taking classes. You just name it. I didn't sit around, I was determined to be healed. I went to treatment twice. I wasn't even court ordered to go to treatment, but I was trying to find out what is wrong with me. Why do I need to keep using drugs? And well, what it is, I was burying all this stuff, and at some point, you got to deal with it. You just got to face it, man, and let it out. Because darkness cannot hide in the light, that's what Jesus said. And I'll tell you, I didn't even write this down, but if you look up darkness in the Hebrew, figuratively, I hate to say that, in the Hebrew or the Greek, I'm not some big theologian, but if you study this stuff out, it means misery, sorrow, there's like 5 other words, and it really describes people in their addiction, you know? And God wants to heal us of all that. He wants to bring out the darkness. You know, when you tell somebody, hey, I was molested, it's got nowhere to hide, right? Or I was beat, whatever, you know? Or I did this stuff. There, you know, when I got out of prison, I would walk right up to people, and man, it's got to be said, there's so many lies out there. A felon can't get a job. You'll always be an addict. All these lies of the enemy. It's BS, man. I would walk up to people. I got out of the halfway house. As soon as they would let me out the door, I walked right onto a construction site. I said, look, I just got out of prison. Need a job. 3 or 4. No. I kept doing it until one guy said, okay. I said, pay me low, man. Pay me $20 an hour. I don't care. You know? So he did. I was walking my boat. It was December in Alaska, and I had to walk like 5 miles. But I just did it. I just kept doing it. And I kept going to recovery meetings. And I kept going to church. Man, I went to, when I got out, or before I got out, I wrote like 6 or 7 churches in Alaska. Told them my deal, told them all my charges, what I did, what I was doing, what I had done in prison. What, you know, I was just looking for a church. One church wrote me back. And like about, I seriously probably wrote 8 churches. And one wrote me back. I like to say, I guess the other churches didn't take felons. There's a Assembly of God church, Pastor Jim. He said, you know what? As soon as you get here, you wrote me back. You come. I ended up playing bass. You know, it was kind of an older demographic church. And man, these people just embraced me, man. They really modeled Jesus to me, you know, forgiveness, love, stuff like that. Hey, we're not going to hold your sin against you. Jesus don't, you know. But I just kept stepping towards Jesus, stepping towards my recovery. I say in here, I chased after recovery like I did dope. You know, I didn't run out of dope. I'll tell you that. I did not run out of dope when I was running hard. And, you know, you hear in these recovery groups, what's your drug of choice? Or mine was more, or yours, you know. I will take your drugs. How about that, you know? And I'll tell you, Jesus has changed me. I'm not that guy that I was, you know, and I'm still working on a lot of things. I really am. And I'm not perfect, but you know, I got 13 years in June clean and sober. But anyway, I could go on. There's things that happened in these prisons that were mind-blowing that only God could do. They sent us Alaskans to this private prison in Colorado, and there was more drugs in this prison. It was a private prison, and the guards were dirty, man. They were making $10 an hour. They'll bring you whatever you want. And drugs were cheaper in that prison than they were in Alaska. Like, I'm not gonna tell you guys prices on drugs, but this prison, an 8-ball of meth in that prison was cheaper than one in Alaska. You want mine? The guy, here's how it works. I get there. The guy that is my cellie was one of the biggest dealers on the yard. His name was, or I won't say his name, but it's like, wow, God, really? But he had weed, he had heroin, he had cocaine in this prison, and I'm sitting there. Prisons, I don't know if you guys have been in prison, but you can't just go say, I want to move. They're going to say, why do you want to move? Is there a problem? You know? And so you can either PC up, protect your custody, or you can snitch, you know, hey, there's drugs, whatever. You know, I wasn't doing none of it. So what did I do? I just prayed. And I didn't smoke cigarettes anymore. He had cigarettes. I didn't really care about the weed, the coke. I didn't do heroin. I mentioned my brother, my older brother. My older brother ended up dying of a heroin overdose when he was 30 years old. But that's another story. But so I was cool with the heroin. I never really, you know, did heroin, but I did a lot of pain pills, pretty much the same. But anyway, so I'm sitting there. I gotta tell you guys a story because it's crazy. I'm sitting there. I look. This guy's got a picture of this lowrider on his thing. Well, I knew the guy. I go, oh, that's what's his name's truck. And the guy goes, "Oh, you do meth, huh?" I'm like, "Well, I used to do meth. You know, that's my drug of choice, right?" He goes, "Man, I got 3 ounces, or 3 or 4 ounces coming in day after tomorrow." He goes, "Yeah, we're gonna get high from this cell." And I'm like, "Oh my God." So I just started praying. When I got there, there's a program, it's called RSAT, Residential Substance Abuse Treatment. So I applied for that, and there was a faith pod, it's called TLC. I can't remember what that stands for, but it was where Christians are, doing there. Man, it was killer over there. I had a lot of friends over there. But I prayed to God, "God, you gotta get me out of here. I do not know if I can handle this. If that meth gets in here," and I quoted scripture where it say, "He'll not give you more than you can handle," basically. You won't be tempted. He'll always give you a way of escape. So I said, "You gotta give me a way of escape." But so that program, the drug treatment, you had to be court ordered, and there was a 100-person waiting list. And then the TLC was 2 weeks out. I could get in that, the faith pod, in 2 weeks. So I'm just screwed, right? That very day that dope was coming in, Miss Vino, she's this little lady. She comes walking in, they're like, "Rogers." I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "Hey, somebody just quit the program. Do you still want to get in this?" And I went, "Hallelujah, later on, dude. I'm out." Didn't have to PC up or snitch on anybody or, I'm God, right? Hallelujah.
Yeah.
So off I go to that. So then this is why I got to tell you guys this. So I had read Rick Warren, right? Preacher, like I said, I read every preacher you can imagine, every one that they had, even ordered some. But Rick Warren, I had read Purpose Driven Life, but I had never heard of Celebrate Recovery. And in that program, you're at the RSAT program, you're in a separate pod from everybody. You can still go out in the yard and everything, but you do treatment all day. You had to go to AA or NA a couple times a week. They had it in the prison as part of your treatment program. But one day this guy walks up, he goes, "Hey man, my mom sent me all this crap, this Bible stuff, this Celebrate Recovery stuff." It was a Celebrate Recovery Bible and had all the lessons, like step studies, so boom. So, because I asked God, "Why didn't you put me in the faith pod?" And that's why. It was to introduce me to Celebrate Recovery, and Miss Vino was a Christian lady. She let me start that program up in there as an alternative to NAA, Accounting for Treatment. And this just dropped in my hands. This is how God works. I'm telling you, He got me out of there. He gave me a way of escape. Miracle. That's a miracle.
Yeah.
There's a 100-person waiting list that were court ordered. That's only God. You know what I mean? And it was only to get me involved in this program. So it took 4 more years, because like I said, the feds came and got me. I never got out. But when I did get out, guess what I found? I went right, called everywhere, and found Celebrate Recovery. And that's where I played some music there, ended up doing the step study there, and that's how I found Scott down here, is because when I was moving, found out where the Celebrate Recovery was. I don't think this one was going yet when that happened. But that's how I hooked up with Scott. It's like, "Yeah, come on down." And I was already broke the chains too, so that worked out. Anyway, what else do I gotta tell you guys? There's one more thing I'm gonna show you guys, because I found it in my paperwork. I never used drugs one time while I was in prison either. I stayed clean the whole time, which is a miracle really, because you're in prison and why not, right? But I made up my mind not to do it. But I wanted to just tell you one more thing. I'm getting booted off the stage here by your mom. So let me just show you this, because it's so important. When I was studying, I was doing Bible studies in there, and I'm talking to God, and I keep hearing God tell me about being oppressed, and I'm reading in John 8:34, it's talking about slave of sin, and we were talking earlier about demon possession, and I'm not saying a believer can be full on possessed by a demon, I don't know. But I know one thing, you can be oppressed by demons. And I'll tell you, just read the Psalms, David battled them constantly. And, you know, there's a whole different level of Bible. You can go through these layers. But when David is talking about enemies, he ain't talking always just about one's physical ones. There's enemies in my soul. And if you read, this is my own opinion, like I said, I'm no theologian, read Psalm 55. And in my opinion, he's naming demons, the voice of the enemy and the oppressor and all this stuff. If you guys dig deep into this, it'll blow your mind. But I want to show you just this one thing in Psalm. Well, I've had a bunch of verses, but if you guys got a strong concordance, look up. I can give you the number. If anybody wants to, I'll just show you later. You can look this stuff up yourself. But there's this word, and I can't even pronounce it because it's Greek, but it's 26:16 in the concordance. But I can try it. It's katadosti or something. Maybe you would know. But it says to exercise dominion against oppression. And it comes from this other Greek word, enslave, bring into bondage. And here's the mind-blowing part. So I'm studying this out. I'm reading all these Psalms. I read them every day. You know, I did for 10 years. And I'm looking at all this stuff. But it sends me Divine's, I don't know if you guys know what that is, Divine's New Testament words, dictionary of New Testament words. But it sends me to this scripture. And this is what blew my mind. And then I'm going to get out of here. It says, it's 2:3. It says, the aged women likewise, that they be in behavior as becometh holiness, not false accusers, not given to much wine, teachers of good things. If you look it up in the Amplified, bid the older women similarly to be reverent and devout in their deportment, as becomes those engaged in sacred service, not slanderers or slaves to drink. And you can read it in the Numeric Standard, but here's the deal. This is all the same word, and it's coming from this Greek word. Slaves, but listen to this. This is what God. Likewise, teach older women to be reverent in the way they live, not to be slanderers or addicted to much wine. God was showing me that all these years I've been oppressed, addicted, enslaved. You can read it in John where he's talking about slaves to sin. It's all the same word. It's bondage. And this comes from the oppressor. These demons are outside or whatever, and they're just, man. And you become a slave to sin. I had a bunch of scriptures I could read you guys, but you gotta look it up for yourself. But it just blew my mind. Addicted to much wine. You're oppressed. Bondage, slaves, it's all the same deal, man, and that was me for all them years. But anyway, I appreciate you guys. I love Celebrate Recovery, and I thank you guys for letting me come up here and jam with you. You know,